There have been many strange, funny and unusual radio stories over the years in the world of radio. In a recent instalment, we looked at some radio stories from air traffic control jammers to bomb scares. So, in this instalment, let's look back at some more unusual stories from the world of radio. René Lemonck, a 62-year-old man from Marseille in France, was locked in a feud with members of a model flying club since he moved next door to their site in 1977. In 1980, he won a court decree prohibiting the planes from flying over his property, but by 1992, the electronics teacher was so annoyed by the noise from the club that he decided to take action. All of a sudden, crashes began to strike the model aircraft like a plague, and during a 2-year period, plane after plane crashed for no apparent reason. Eventually, over 100 models had crashed at the site, and radio investigators determined that the crashes were caused by powerful electronic interference originating from Lemonck's house. He was charged with using radio waves to crash more than 100 model planes. However, Lemonck denied the charges and put the incident down to pure coincidence. It's not clear to this day whether he was found guilty or what his punishment was. In August of 1994, ground radio traffic at Hill Air Force Base in Utah began experiencing static interference. The problem became so bad that Technical Sergeant Jeff Ingraham and several other base workers used radio tracking equipment to find the area from which the interference was emanating. Taken to their vehicles, the trackers headed out into the mountains between Ogden and Brigham City, and after a long period of searching, they were at a loss as to what the source of the interference was. Using binoculars, they found the unlikely offender, a goat nicknamed Phyllis, who was sporting the latest in fashionable radio collars. The collar was used for tracking the goat and were popular on animals on large expanses of land. The state changed the radio collar but wasn't convinced that it would solve the problem. But it did, and normal radio operations resumed at Hill Air Force Base. It was a typical busy evening of police radio traffic. Burglaries in progress, domestic disputes, road traffic accidents, and then suddenly teenage voices. These voices shouted obscenities, called the police pigs, and intimidated officers as they responded to calls. It didn't take officials in Tampa, Florida long to realise that a police radio had been stolen in early 1996. Deputy Tom Allen said they were calling them pigs and saying, "Why don't you come and find us?" Knowing that the abusive communications were hard to trace, police endured the barrage of abuse for 8 hours until an officer noticed a pattern emerging. He noticed that the teens kept making references to a certain area of town. Then they heard them mention the address, 8306. When police knocked on the door of 8306 June Street, they were greeted by an unsuspecting woman who confirmed that the voice on the radio sounded like her son. The officer asked the woman to call him when the son returned home. The woman never called, but the radio interruptions stopped, and when the police later returned to the house, one teen confessed to making the abusive transmissions. He and a friend were charged with the interception of electronic communications, a third-degree felony, but police were unable to recover the radio, with the teen saying that it had been stolen from them a day earlier. One summer evening in 1996, Salisbury, Massachusetts police officer Jack Carl inadvertently picked up a suspicious cordless phone conversation while on patrol. The caller was a teenager and was eventually arrested on drug charges as he was overheard giving the exact times and locations for a drugs deal. The officer in turn notified the local drug task force. A police spokesman explained the inadvertent interception by saying cordless phone calls don't usually get picked up by police scanners, However, on rare occasions, phone signals have been known to go astray and end up on scanner frequencies, so make of that what you will. However, during the 1990s, the police did sometimes monitor cordless phone frequencies for this type of activity, and charges often had to be dropped due to judges ruling that gathering evidence that way wasn't allowed because phone users were entitled to some degree of privacy.